Welcome in, champions. Welcome in. Doesn't it feel good? It's been too long, but we've reclaimed our position right there at the top. And that's one of the things we're going to talk about this evening, because I believe that college football has a serious Georgia Bulldogs problem headed their way. That's what's on the docket tonight on the How About That Dogs cast. I got to tell you, friends, in the aftermath of a game like we had on Saturday, there's a lot of different ways you can feel. You can feel super excited, which is completely normal. You can feel, like you got a little get back. You can feel like, you're a bad mother, and that's okay too. Because when your boys walk out there and handle business the way the Dogs did, you earn the right to feel however you want to feel. And if those that don't like it have something to say about it, well, as long as you're being respectful, then you got no need to listen. They can like it, not like it, doesn't matter. Because they don't get to call the shots, not right now. We know what that's like. Last year, it didn't go the Dogs' way. And on this channel, the one thing you didn't hear me do was sit here and say, what if this, what if that, wait till next time. Nope. Georgia lost it. They gave it up. Not now. And if I'm going to be that kind of fan who's going to sit here after it doesn't go your way, and I'm not going to make excuses, or I'm not going to try to wish away what had happened, if I'm not going to do that, if I'm just going to accept the results for what they are, well, when my team comes out on top, I expect you to do the same. And if you aren't going to do the same, then you and I aren't going to see eye to eye very often. And you're just going to have to put up with whatever it is that we're going to say for the next little bit. Because for the next 365 days a year, it is unequivocal who runs the SEC. Same king as it ever was. Them Georgia Bulldogs. So, yeah, I'm feeling pretty good. There are those out there, though, who maybe they're not feeling so good. And it's because of what they had to see in the run-up to it. That means I don't feel sorry for them in the least. Not a little bit. Not even maybe a little bit. Nope. If you're going to bump your gums and do all that talking before it happens, then I don't want to hear from you after the fact. No excuses, none of that stuff. So here's just one example of the kind of predicament that it gets you into when you do stuff like that.
Before we let you go, what's your score prediction?
20-16 horns.
20-16 horns.
Time to take the crown. Time to sit the head of the table, man. Thank y'all for having me.
You heard him. He told you. Time to take the crown. Time to sit at the head of the table. No, friend. I like you, Matthew. We'd probably be fast friends. But not when it comes to what's happening between the white lines on the gridiron. No, you know where you are, and I know where I'm at, and that's okay. But when it don't go your way, it's got to sting. So it is what it is. These fellas made us all right on Saturday. And they went about it in just about the most difficult way possible. I talked a lot about the SEC championship game on Sunday after the brackets were revealed for the college football playoff, and we knew officially where everybody was going to be. But you can't see this picture often enough. Allow yourself to think for just a second everything that this team has had to go through this season. The revolving door of injuries and personnel that just haven't been there. And constantly that drumbeat of Georgia's not Georgia. Georgia's not going to be able to do it this time. Georgia looks like they're slipping. It's not the same team that Kirby Smart has had. No joke. It's not. And I sat right here and tried to help us all understand exactly why that was the case. Because of injuries, because of attrition, because of all those things that are out there, because of NIL, because of transfer portal, because 50% of your roster is new every year. You're going to have to grow and learn and develop, which is exactly what Kirby Smart told us was going to have to happen before the season ever started back at SEC Media Days. He says, we are playing the long game. It is about who can be there at the end, who can develop their young players and have them ready to go when it's time to compete for championships at the end of the year. And how many times, if you follow anything Georgia, not only this space, but other spaces, how many times have you heard Georgia players step to the microphone, players like Jalen Walker, Malachi Starks, those guys step up there and go, at Georgia, we play our best football at the end of the year. That's just what we do. It always seems to work out that way. And here we are, end of the year, and the boys are champions again. So when I talk about superstructure inside the program, when I talk about culture inside the program, that is what makes Georgia different. That is what this team is. But none of this happens in a vacuum. Georgia didn't go out there and steamroll Texas. Texas is a good football team. But they aren't Georgia. They want to be Georgia. Just like everybody else in the country wants to be Georgia. Georgia has the top program in college football. From where I sit, it's beyond dispute. That is not something that's up for debate. They might not have the best player at a certain position. They might not have the best team in a given year. I sat right here the other night and told you Kirby does not have the best team in college football this year from a talent roster perspective. It's a really good roster. It is very talented. But in terms of what we have known Georgia to be, consistency and all of those things, this is not Kirby's best squad. And yet, crown them champions. Because when things get hard, champions, our Georgia Bulldogs, the top program in college football, you revert back to the basics. And for these guys in this program, the basics are physicality and resilience and composure. That's what we saw on the field Saturday against the Texas Longhorns. That is exactly what Texas is not. That is exactly what Texas and Oregon and Ohio State and whoever you want to name wants to be right now. That doesn't guarantee you that you're going to win every game. That is not what that means. But what it does mean is that when it comes to the standard in college football today, that standard resides in Athens. That and much more that we're about to get into is why I believe the college football playoff and college football as a whole has a very serious Georgia Bulldogs problem on their hands moving forward, because not only do we know that this group is already championship caliber, it's because of the performance of guys like this. If Georgia were a quarterback-led team, then if you lose your number one quarterback, you are flat screwed, buddy. But that's not what Georgia is. Doesn't mean that the quarterback is not important. There are very few teams in college football that ask more of their quarterbacks than the University of Georgia does in the pro-style offense that they run. You have to know it frontwards, backwards, side to side. You have to know everybody's job, every check. And then you still have to physically be able to go do the thing. Gunnar Stockton had played virtually not at all this year. And I talked about that way back in April. I flatly said Georgia does not have a quarterback controversy. But what they have to do is figure out how to get Gunnar Stockton ready to play should they need him. And the way the season shook out, because of the way this team had to come together over the course of the year, those opportunities didn't really present themselves. But it's because of the system that he's in. It's because of the superstructure of the culture of the program that he's in. The competitive nature that the practices provide Georgia's players every day, that, as well as his own personal makeup, is what allowed Gunnar Stockton to go out there and perform the way he did Saturday, with the world watching. It wasn't just him, but it didn't have to be, because that's not what Georgia asks of their quarterbacks. They ask you to distribute the ball. They ask you to take care of it. They ask you to make good decisions. They ask you to lead your men. That's what Gunnar Stockton is. That's what he's always been. He just had a chance to show it on Saturday. Gunnar was not the starter for a reason. Carson Beck was the starter because he gave Georgia the best chance to win. And people began to question whether or not Beck was as talented as maybe everyone thought he was heading into the year. And I'm here to tell you, no. There was never a reason to doubt him. He's every bit as talented as we all thought he was coming in. But with all the moving pieces on this team this year, and maybe a little bit of, we know you're the guy, so go make the play crept in around Carson Beck this year. But think about it. When he played at his very best, it wasn't him making the plays. It was him distributing the ball. Think about that for a second. It was kind of like when he was not in his rhythm, it wasn't that he was any less the player than he ever was, but it was more of he was in the game, but not a part of the game. And once something happened in a game, whether it was the run at Tennessee or maybe, when he had to get beat around a little bit at Alabama before they kicked it into gear in the second half, he understood. He fell into that groove of, I am in the game. I am not just distributing the ball. I am now working in concert with my team to make this thing happen. Well, good thing for Gunnar is he didn't have a choice. You come in the middle of the game that you were losing, it's not on you to go out there and win it by yourself, because you just can't do that. You have to have help from your team, and everybody knew it. And therefore, they were able to lean back, fall in to that culture that they work in 365 days a year, lean on it, and rise to the occasion and play for each other. And then when they did that, you see the result. Champions. But Gunnar wasn't alone. There were other guys that had magnificent performances that day. What about this dude? Hadn't played in 3 or 4 games, it felt like. And even when he did play, the last time we'd seen him, he hadn't done much. Florida didn't get to do a lot because he got hurt. Ole Miss couldn't really go because he was still really banged up. He just rolls out there in a Kevlar vest and says, I'm about to go for, almost 100 yards and a couple of scores. I'm going to walk the thing off in overtime. Because it mattered. This is one of those dudes that came to Georgia because he completely bought into what it was. He bought into that culture, to that superstructure. He's one of those dudes that's going over the cliff. He's going to follow Kirby and Carson and whoever else were the established leaders that you want to point to on this team, because he was that bought in. And when he had his opportunity, he cemented his legacy for the Georgia Bulldogs as a Longhorn killer. Dude ate them alive in 2 appearances against the Texas Longhorns. You know they don't want to see him again. And as much as they want to talk, I can't believe, honestly, that any of those Texas fans want to see Georgia again. Because it wasn't a fluke. At Texas, you won because we turned the ball over. Why did you turn the ball over? because that defense was after you all night long. In Atlanta, you won because Quinn Ewers stinks. Really? He went for 350 yards. Is that bad? I didn't know that was bad. You only won because we missed 2 field goals. Really? That's part of the game. You want a cookie? That's how it goes. Why did you miss those field goals? Because they were made longer, because of the play of the defense, or because you couldn't hold your water and took penalties at crucial moments, because the fans in the Georgia state of Georgia here who were at the game made it a difficult environment for you to play in. These things all matter. Excuses are the bastion of losers. It didn't always go Georgia's way. It may not go Georgia's way in the future. What you will not hear me do is sit here and make excuses. I told you guys this is a coin flip game, and it was going to come down to everything that Georgia is. That culture, that superstructure, all of those things would make the difference. Your boy was right. Absolutely right. When it got tough, when it got hard, Texas is still learning how to win. For all the talk, for all the show, for all of the burnt orange and hook 'em and all that stuff, that's a team that until last year hadn't won anything for about a quarter century. They're fond of saying Texas is back. You know who don't have to say that? Georgia. Because Georgia's been here. It took them a while to break through to the ultimate goal. But we're talking about a program in Georgia that has multiple conference championships over the period that Texas has been dormant and lost in the wilderness. You're looking at a program in Georgia that averages 10 plus wins a year over the last 2 decades. And then Kirby Smart shows up, supercharges the whole thing, and now you've got the monster that is the Georgia Bulldog football program, the top program in college football, running the show right now. So anybody can say anything they want. Doesn't matter. Georgia is the standard. They are the top program in college football. And they're going to get better. This is just the beginning. For 2 straight years, Georgia has had issues with injuries and things like that. This team, and I don't know how comfortable I feel saying this, but I hear it a lot. People want to say this is Kirby's worst team since he took over in Athens. Worst doesn't sit right with me. But I will grant you that this is not his best squad because of all the stuff I've talked about. And all they did was go out there and win yet another SEC championship and get the overall number 2 seed in the college football playoff. Are you kidding me? That's what we're sitting on in Athens right here, and the future is very, very bright. So when we're talking about things like the transfer portal and NIL and all those sorts of things, I'm not losing sleep over any of that stuff. Because Kirby has shown time and time again that he is the best roster management head coach in college football right now. If you can look at Georgia as a player and honestly think to yourself, you know what? I'm going to better my situation by going somewhere else. If you choose to ignore all of the player development that occurs in Athens, if you choose to ignore the fact that over the last handful of years, they have put more players in the NFL draft than any other program, if you choose to ignore the wins that stack up so high you can't see them, if you choose to ignore all of the recent championships, all of the success, and you want to go somewhere else, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you. Good luck. Because it's like Kirby said, and it's like he told them in the locker room after the game on Saturday. If you don't want to be here, fare thee well. Because the people who choose to be Georgia Bulldogs and want to be in that locker room, that's the dudes they're going to develop. That's the dudes they're going to go fight with. That's the guys that they're going to go win with. That's not being, a braggart. That's not like speaking out of school. I'm not telling tales. I'm simply reflecting back all of the success that this program has had. Now, any and everything can change. That's the one consistent in this life. But with Kirby Smart as the head coach at the University of Georgia, I'm going to take my chances every day. Every season, every year. And I think the Dogs are going to end up being in pretty good shape most of the time. On New Year's Day, from New Orleans, the Bulldogs will face either the Indiana Hoosiers or the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. And either way you cut it, when Georgia rolls back into the Sugar Bowl, which, as you can see here, be honest, you can't spell Sugar Bowl without UGA. There's going to be history made. Indiana is going to be on a stage like they have never been on before. Or we get to see echoes of some classic battles between Notre Dame and the Georgia Bulldogs, which we've seen in this very arena before. Any way you slice it, I'm looking forward to that game. But I am thankful that the Dogs have time to heal up, game plan, get ready, coach them up, regardless of whoever shows up there. Now, I'm not a betting man, but if I were, I would expect that it's going to be Notre Dame in that game. And that'll be cool because, if you watch Notre Dame down the end of the stretch of the season there, that is a good-looking football team. And if you are the Georgia Bulldogs, that looks like a game that would be hard-fought, well won. I do think Georgia matches up well with Notre Dame. But we'll have more to say about that in the future. If it turns out that it's Indiana, I think Georgia absolutely matches up well with Indiana. And regardless of whether it's Indiana or Notre Dame, I don't think either of those teams can rise to the level of physicality that Georgia's going to bring to the field in New Orleans. So it doesn't really matter, going back to the quarterback discussion for a second, who's taking snaps for Georgia, because that's not what Georgia's built around. They are built around that defense, physical style of play, not beating themselves. I think Georgia can be expected to do all of those things against whoever they might end up playing in the Sugar Bowl there. But we do have some good news. That is out in front of us, right? We don't yet know who Georgia's going to play officially, but we know we're going to be there, and I know I'm excited for it. But news never stops. And today we got, some really cool news from where I'm sitting.
Jalen Walker, the Salisbury, North Carolina linebacker for Georgia, BUTKUS Award finalist.
This is their top pass rusher. Man, is it fun to watch him when he is on the edge in his defense.
Cannot escape. They've got him again. Jalen Walker.
There's 11 again. How fired up is Jalen Walker leading this defense?
It's just been a nightmare so far for Texas.
Let's go.
Friends, Jalen Walker was announced as the BUTKUS Award winner today, giving Georgia their third BUTKUS Award-winning linebacker under Kirby Smart, as well as the third linebacker to win the award under the tutelage of Glenn Schumann. Be Roquan Smith, Nakobe Dean, and now Jalen Walker. Jalen Walker, it couldn't happen to a better dude. And when he decided he was going to be a Bulldog, to come to Athens from North Carolina, he was one of those guys. Every year you look at recruiting and you're like, which one of these guys do I really think is going to make an impact for Georgia? From the minute I became aware of who this young man was, I had super high hopes for him. And there were points along the way where I thought, I don't know if he's being utilized right. I wish I could, we'd see him here or there. And all the while, all you ever heard from JALON was, me and the coaching staff are working together. We are figuring it out the best way to utilize my skill set. And then we step into year 3 for JALON. And prior to the season, he, on one of the podcasts that's associated with the university, said, he's like, I want to be that bread man this year. I left so much money on the field last year. This is the year I want to go get it. And that's exactly what the young man did. He went out there, and every time Georgia needed him to lead, he led. Every time Georgia needed him to make a play, he made it. And like I said, it couldn't happen to a better young man. Just a phenomenal person, a phenomenal football player, a fantastic student athlete, and now a BUTKUS award winner for life. That's one of the big ones. That's one of the ones that is kind of like the Heisman. People will talk about it forever. So when you look at Georgia and you wonder why they call it LBU, you wonder why they can stack number 1 rated linebacker recruit on top of number 1 rated linebacker recruit year after year after year. It's because of stuff like this. It's because of the production that is proven in Athens. So if you play linebacker and you don't come to Georgia, I mean, everybody makes their own choices, but I seriously have to question whether or not you're thinking about your future in the right way. So Jalon Walker, your 2024 BUTKUS Award winner. Outstanding news today out of Athens. So let's move this thing forward. As I said, college football has a serious Georgia Bulldogs problem. And it's just like Jalon showed on the field on Saturday, that famous Georgia whiteboard where the messages that need to be heard get scrawled out in a hurry at the end of games. The message on the board this week, we are the SEC. And the thing is, fam, he ain't lying. He ain't lying. Georgia, over the last handful of years, has just handled this league. Look back at the winning streaks. Look back at the titles. It's Georgia's world and everybody's living in it. Now, like I said, when you have talented teams that fight, doesn't always go your way. That's what happened last year against Alabama, and credit to them. But champions, well, you have to knock a champion out. You have to cut the head off the snake. You have to kill them and then kill them again, because they're not going to walk away from a challenge. That is who and what the Dogs are. And if you think, and at times it feels this way, that everybody out there is just rooting against Georgia, that may be true. But one thing that is absolutely true is that all eyes are on the Dogs. These numbers came out just today. The top 10 teams of the 24 season for average viewership per game, number 1 right at the top, our Georgia Bulldogs, 8.6 viewers, 8.6 million viewers per game as an average. The nearest team, about 2 million back from that number. Ohio State's on that list. Alabama. Texas is on that list. And I shared the story with you guys earlier about how Texas fans came running saying, yes, that first game between Georgia and Texas was the highest rated game. Why is that? Because Texas was in it. I said, no, poor misinformed, ignorant individual. No. It's a big game because Georgia's in it. just like it has been for the last handful of years. That's the reality. These numbers back it up. Georgia played the toughest games. Alabama, Texas, in the SEC championship game again. You were on the marquee stage time after time after time. The one common denominator there, Georgia. So love them, or whether people are out there hate watching them because they want to see them lose. Makes no never mind. Georgia is America's team because when the Dogs are on the screen, people are watching. They are watching. They are paying attention. One of the things I'm fond of saying is you don't have to like it, but that's the truth. That's the reality. I don't see that changing anytime soon, especially when you look at what Kirby Smart is doing and should continue to do for the foreseeable future. Look at these numbers. SEC titles, national championships, top recruiting classes. And the thing is, friends, we are right in the middle of it all right now. The Dogs just finished with yet another top tier recruiting class. The transfer portal is going crazy right now. And all we're doing is muddling our way through winning another conference title and getting ready to go take our shot at another national championship. It's all happening right now. Life is good. I know Christmas is coming. I know things get a little hectic. But when you think that things are spinning out of control in your life and you're a Georgia Bulldogs fan, just sit back and remember. Great to be a Georgia Bulldog. It's a damn good day to be a Georgia Bulldog. I am lucky. Georgia born, by the grace of God, a Georgia Bulldog. Telling you, friends, this is the good stuff. And now we're getting ready to head down a road that nobody's ever been down before. And in some combination, we're going to see these games play out. But the college football playoffs start next weekend. Texas is going to be taking on Clemson. Now, we don't do stuff like betting lines and all that kind of jazz over here. But I can absolutely look at this game and say, shoot, do I think Texas is probably going to win? Yeah, I do. Do I think I can see a way how the Clemson Tigers pull off the upset? Absolutely, I do. We'll have more to say on that moving forward, as we will all of these games, because Tennessee has to go on the road to take on Ohio State. One of those classic matchups of where you've got a Southern team that has to go on the road in the depths of December. Oh my, what will we ever do? You see where I'm headed with this? Shoot. James Franklin at Penn State even came out on the selection show on Sunday and said, I really hope we have some snow for the game when SMU comes up here. It'll be interesting to see that Texas team play up here in Pennsylvania in the cold weather. Listen, I don't know how y'all feel, but if you got to step out there in front of God and everybody else and talk about how you need help from Mother Nature to defeat your opponent between the white lines, that's not the flex that you think it is. That's not a good look. And yet you got cats running around here bragging about it. I don't know. I wouldn't feel too great about it if I had to run out there and be like, I need all the help I can get because otherwise I can't beat this team. We'll see how they shake out. And then there's the game that's going to lead directly to the Bulldogs here on the bottom side of that bracket. Indiana and Notre Dame in an all-Indiana matchup, so they don't care about the weather. Newsflash, I don't care about the weather either. But Indiana and Notre Dame, everybody seems to think Notre Dame's probably going to win this thing. Like I said, I probably feel that same way. But I'm excited to see them do it. And I'm excited for the 12-team playoff as a whole because I think it's going to be a whole lot of fun. And I really do feel good about where Georgia is positioned moving forward in this thing because I think that they've got a shot to carry this thing forward and win it all. That's not me just sitting here as a Georgia fan saying that. Styles make fights. Matchups are king. But I've sat here all year and just tried to share a perspective about this Georgia Bulldogs football team that is coming to fruition right in front of us. This is not about one player. It is not about one superstar. It never has been. When you're a program like Georgia, there are superstars everywhere. They're all tremendous football players. But what is different? What separates them from every other team in the country? It's that superstructure. It's that culture. It is the competitive greatness, the competitive arrogance, if you want to look at it that way. That's what makes them different. Does it guarantee anything moving forward? No. But when I look at what this team is, what they will have to be as Gunnar Stockton steps in and takes over the role as QB1 for Georgia, they are going to have to be a physical football team. They are going to have to be a defensive football team. And they are going to have to be a team that doesn't beat themselves. Oh man, throw me in the briar patch. I think on some level, Kirby Smart kind of loves it. I think he low-key is like, yep, that's what I want. Doubt me. At your own peril. That's what he's saying. We'll see how it all plays out. They have to go play the games. All this is just talk. But I know that I feel really, really comfortable with where Georgia is right now as they get ready to embark on a journey that none of us has ever seen before. The Georgia Bulldogs, well, college football has a serious problem. They have a serious Georgia Bulldogs problem moving forward. This is arguably, for some, Kirby Smart's least team that he's had during his time in Athens. I don't like to use the word worst, but it is not the same kind of squad that rolled out there in 21 with, that entire starting defense being drafted into the NFL. It is not the same kind of squad that rolled out there in 2022 where you could visibly just look at them and go, yep, that's the best team in college football. That is not what this Georgia team is. In fact, this is a Georgia team that anyone and everyone, especially on a national level, has taken time to look at this year and call warts on. They're looking for a chink in the armor. And this year, those chinks have been easier than ever to see. But Kirby Smart, in what I think is quite possibly his best coaching job at the University of Georgia so far, has taken this team and elevated them to yet another SEC championship. And everything else that they want is in front of them. And when you look at the way the bracket lays out before them, I absolutely feel good about Georgia's opportunities to get back to and play for the national championship at the end of this thing in January. Now, there are really good football teams along the way. Thing is, Georgia's a really good football team too. They're a really good program. They know what it takes to get it done at the end of the day. They've been there. They are battle tested. And the lights will never be too bright. Not even for your backup quarterback that hasn't played any this year. You can't find a brighter stage than the SEC championship game in college football other than potentially the national championship game. And to see what Gunnar was able to do when he went out on the field Saturday, buoyed by his teammates, has to make you feel good about the opportunities that lie ahead for this Georgia Bulldogs football team. I, for one, am super excited about what lays ahead for this team and for myself. And I know you guys are too. I'm looking forward to the games. I hope you enjoy them. And until next time, take care of yourselves. Take care of your friends, your families. Take care of each other. And go Dogs!
Told them, how about them fucking dogs? That's what I told them.